let me just start by saying that I've been in Miami quite a while, and my relationship with the New World goes back to even right before they officially started. There was a major festival here called New Music America that went around different cities in the US, uh, obviously focusing on contemporary music. And the year it was done here in Miami, the New World Symphony was the orchestra that performed as part of this week-long festival. And Michael Tilson Thomas obviously was here, but also Dennis Russell Davies was conducting as well. And I had the great fortune of having a work commission for soprano and orchestra that was done by them. And I was, this young composer, kind of young up and coming composer, whatever. And
Which
so
year? Which year was that?
1988.
88.
1988. It was December of '88. I'll never forget it. And so there was this wonderful festival. The orchestra played. John Cage was here. Charles Warren was here. Steve Reich. All these obviously major composers were here. And it was quite an experience. And so since that time, since '88, I've seen the orchestra develop and unfold. And I've had the pleasure of being able to work in different capacities with them. So obviously, one of the big things that I'm curious about is how you look at programming, right, for this orchestra, given what it's done before and what you see it going into the future. What kind of decisions do you have for the orchestra? They're obviously a student orchestra, supposedly, but obviously they're one of the best orchestras around because the level was so high. Even though they're young performers to a certain extent, the level is extremely high. So the repertoire is probably kind of limitless in some ways. So I was just curious how you see, your role in programming and how that's going to unfold.
Start with what an orchestra play is a big question today, because we have this immense treasure of the core repertoire that span now about 300 years of music somehow. And I'm fascinated by why some pieces entered into the top list of the crème de la crème of the kind of masterworks that are really played over and over, and why some masterworks were played a lot at a part of history and then decline or come back. So those waves of, let's say, fame for the main pieces of the repertoire is quite fascinating, and I found extremely important that we renew the canon, that we help the repertoire to stay alive. And something that is a big part of my life is try to identify the rare pieces that can stand the test of time and just really enrich the repertoire of symphony orchestras forever. And this is a very complicated thing, because if you ask today anybody, okay, give me the name of the last masterwork chronologically that entered the repertoire of the orchestra. I mean, I don't know how to qualify in the kind of first list, the most important pieces, or even I would say a piece that is recognized by the audience and that people will want to buy a ticket to see that piece. The answer you have is fascinating. I mean, some people go as far as, as speaking about pieces before the Second World War, and some adventure into okay, maybe some Britten, pieces, maybe some Shostakovich-led symphonies, maybe, and it always horrifies me then that you cannot really have right away an answer even of our century, the 21st century. When I ask people that are knowledgeable with the repertoire, that are artistic directors, that are conductors, soloists, and I ask this specific question, there's not an obvious answer right away. And this is really, really worrying or sad, because I do believe there are a lot of very interesting pieces that are existing in the 21st century that need to enter the core repertoire and be played again and again. And so for me, it's very important to have all the young musicians getting really passionate and enthusiastic about that, about the music of our time, let's say, to make it simple, the 21st century music, for instance. We are now 23.5 years into it. So just to say, okay, it's almost a quarter of a century. What is the piece that you really love the most, that you really want to play again and again, that you really feel belongs to your music world, to your music, just taste and repertoire? And so this is a big part of my mission, I think, with the New World Symphony, is to work on that and identify and promote the very, very best music of today. So I believe you can expect that I will try to incorporate to any program some of the best music of today. And we should take the risk, of course, to premiere music. And that, of course, is always a risk, because even great composers, we know it in history, have had, you know, some very successful pieces and some less successful pieces. So the talent, the genius of a composer is not always producing for granted a masterwork. But apart from that activities of doing premieres, I think it's very important to really work with enthusiasm about finding the best piece of today and promote them, and get the musicians really empowered by them and ambassador of this, because we need to renew our canon.